Welcome to the Miles Pod Morning Money Show here with Monty, episode 3. Monty Shockley is the president and founder of SIC Omaha Shockley Intellectual Capital. How the heck are you, sir?
I'm doing good.
Right off the bat, let's get right into it. Let me get a stock pick for today. Let's go with a stock pick.
You want a stock pick?
Let's get a stock pick.
Let's go Portillo's. PTLO. Undervalued micro cap.
Break that down.
Undervalued micro cap. They got like 100 stores. They'll probably grow to maybe 1,000 within 10 years. Solid food. Everybody loves them. Not being watched by anybody. Right now, struggling to get over $14, $15 a share. But in my view, it's a $100 stock. So you want to 10x your money? Buy some Portillo's. You heard it first right here on the Miles Pod.
Well, Portillo's is trading at $13.84 right now.
You couldn't get a better deal.
Very
interesting. Get a better deal.
That's a great deal, actually.
Dive in head first.
Wow. Now, what about Portillo's has you thinking, let's go along with this one? Is it the rate that they're opening up new stores? Is it their quality? Is it their executive team? What is it specifically? If you could really get into the details on why somebody should put, potentially their life savings into buying this stock.
Well, first, let's start with the entire value of the company. So I believe they're a little under. They might be right around $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken, like the whole value of the shares outstanding. So if I'm a trader, I'm not saying day-to-day trader, but, in general, I have to look at the probability of this company doubling in size. So is it possible that a good manager, a good CDO could take this company and go from $1 billion to $2 billion in market valuation? I think it's a lot more probable than a company going from 500 to 600 billion in evaluation. There are little steps that they can take to do that and impress the marketplace. And it's just easier when you're a smaller company. So my opinion, their ability to take Portillo's as it is now, double it in size, is something a well-oiled CEO or manager could do. With that comes sales. So let's do the basic math. If I just double the amount of stores I have, they go from 100 to 200 nationwide. In theory, if I just double my sales, I've doubled the value of the company. And that's where I would start as a manager. So eventually somebody smart will figure that out. I just feel there's tremendous upside with this one.
So one of the main rebuttals that you'll probably get is the 12-month change down 26.5%. Can you explain that? Is that something to be concerned with?
So I attribute the current price of Portillo's as being the effect of micro cap, which means smaller companies that are worth under $1 billion in the value of their company. Wall Street doesn't have a big appetite for those. So they're not buying mutual funds that have these small cap companies in them. And because of that, Portillo's is in those buckets of small cap stocks. And once the appetite for more risk starts to ignite, I think you're going to get higher valuations. They're stuck in there with all your ETFs and your mutual funds that are just not very attractive. It just happens to be one of a few that I find, very interesting. So
Portillo's is a buy all day, folks. Moving on to the first beat here The first bullet point, late breaking news. Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan Tate are back in jail. That's right.
What? What did
They,
they do
yes,
now?
according to the Washington Post, they have been detained in Romania again under a UK warrant this time. So basically, late last night, or they were detained Monday evening on charges of committing or had allegations of sexual aggression. I'm not sure what that means. From 2012 to 2015. They could be held longer for 24 hours. An appeals court in Bucharest is expected to make a decision on next steps. So basically, they were detained off of something that happened almost 10 years ago by a whole nother, like, they're in Romania, and the United Kingdom had the power to request the Romanian government to detain them. That's pretty bizarre. And what does this mean, you think, as a business owner? Like, look what Romania has done to these two. Like, I think no one was even thinking about visiting Romania until the Tate brothers. But what does this mean if countries can just sit there and subpoena you? I mean, this is getting insane.
Well, if you're asking me, it's the activity that they were involved in. You know, if they had been making pretzels in their basement and not paying taxes on the sale of those pretzels, you wouldn't be having this conversation, right? You'd have a small settlement out of court, maybe a slap on the wrist. But the fact that they have a little bit more of a risque approach to marketing, like, it's just biting them in the butt. It's part of the risk with going too taboo with how you're getting attention. And this is also a very good point, a very good point to bring up the fact that this guy and his brother are super producers. If something happens to them, their brand is seriously impacted. So when you invest in guys like this, when you're doing business with, you know, very marketable people like this, it's really detrimental to their growth when you have this baggage from poor risk management in the past just fly up to the surface. And now, what's the future of the Tate brand? I don't know. They have a lot of followers that believe in what they're doing. But if the two founders are caught up in stuff like this, they may shut his whole business down just because of, you know, of his decision, or their group, or whoever's managing his company, again, to use more of an exploitive approach to marketing to the masses.
As a person of color, as a black man myself, I find it kind of heartbreaking to constantly see people that I look up to, or leaders in this space, detained and jailed. Like, it just seems like it always happens, whether it's Floyd Mayweather, um, Muhammad Ali back in the day. Like, it always seems like they're they end up detained or jailed. I mean, this is like Jay-Z, like the United States, saying, you know what, Jay-Z, in your music, you say you sold crack. And so from 1985 to 89, you sold crack. So we're actually going to charge you with selling with crack cocaine distribution, arrest you, and detain you. So again, this is the UK, and this is a allegation. This isn't even, they haven't been convicted of any crime. There's no
Right.
substantial evidence. This is really all hearsay. Allegedly, they did this, and it's again from 10 years ago. So I don't know. This just, like, how do you find any kind of separation from the dumb stuff you did in your past to where you should be operating in? But like you said, they have one of the ultimate dancing bear companies. Like, without them being active, how can their online platform for education for entrepreneurs, how can it flourish?
Right. When you're dealing with international, other international companies, I mean, if they legally can do this, that's the risk of doing business in Romania. If this is actually the value in attaining appropriate legal counsel or more experienced mentors who can kind of guide you down the road so stuff like this doesn't happen. But if you're in a different country and you're doing business, you got to understand the laws. That at any point in time, if this is legal, they can shut you down. I mean, look at the example here in the U.S. Um, I, I, I I think what happened to Trump, former President Trump, related to the government somehow being able to charge him 300, 400 million more for a loan that he took out that he already paid off, that had nothing to do with anybody, or it wasn't anybody else's business and nobody had a problem with it, was really suspect. What are we talking about here? And it even happens here. Look where his status is. So you have to be careful, but you also have to be prepared for consequences that are unforeseen.
Yeah, according to the New York Times, the Trump fraud trial penalty will exceed $450 million, and this was something that a judge um, filed against him. So basically, they ordered him to pay this penalty of nearly $355 million plus interest. And this came from one specific justice alongside the New York's attorney general. I mean, this again, you're right, 100% right. Like, this is bizarre. Say what you want about your political affiliations and how you feel about Trump. Um, I don't think he's the best president of all time, but to see this happen to a guy during an election and to see it happen on what is a very typical process in real estate, which is getting your property valued at at a price that is more than what you bought it for, and then getting a loan on that amount. It's just a very typical process, and then for him to pay the loan back on
Yeah,
top of it, like, this doesn't make any sense. It just screams foul play.
it it's the responsibility on the lender to determine the accurate valuation, or what they deem the valuation on a piece of property is, before they issue the loan. It is the lender's responsibility to come back and say, not to the lender, but to the receiver of the loan, hey, we don't agree with what the lender said the valuation of your assets were when they gave you the loan. So now you owe us, a third party who had nothing to do with the transaction, $400 million is just unjust. I don't know how that happens without some type of corruption being tied to it. So we talk about corruption in other countries. That was corrupt right there. There's something wrong there that's not being explained or divulged to the public.
Yeah, who would want to do business in New York, specifically real estate in New York after something like this?
I don't know. That's why I'm trying to pull real estate agents, brokers, and developers into Omaha, because it's ridiculous. You can't do business there. It's insane. All you can do is rent properties you bought 30 years ago.
So where would you advise somebody to start a business?
I'd advise anybody who had the courage to start in a Bible Belt state. Start with the foundations. Base it off faith-based principles and do it one person at a time.
Are there any advantages in Nebraska?
There are several advantages. One, you have space to build a headquarters. So if your goal is to build a good base camp so you can, sell in other places, it's a great place to do it. Two, there are some very good tax laws that make it easy to do business in here if you follow the steps. Very rarely do you have cases like this where you have an overarching puppet master saying, "No, no, no, you did something wrong, even though everything's right on paper." So I don't know how you get around that in other states, but that's New York. So,
Well, jumping back to our bullet points here, I got another one for you. This is interesting. Southwest Airlines, according to CNBC, cuts capacity, rethinking their 2024 financial forecast due to Boeing problems. So apparently, Boeing has delivery delays this year. CEOs, not just with Southwest, but other airline CEOs, are frustrated by the repeated setbacks at Boeing that have delayed deliveries of new planes. Boeing is facing quality control crisis in the wake of a blown fuselage panel on Alaskan Airlines flight early this year. Apparently, these 737 MAX planes are just having all kind of issues. What does this say about Southwest and the airline industry?
well, there was an announcement maybe 2, 3 years ago where the uh, the airports basically said that we're going to have fewer flights this year, so you better plan ahead. Try to get your tickets earlier. If that wasn't a blatant form of market manipulation, I don't know what is. So again, here's an example at the federal level where they're telling corporations you need to reduce the amount of flights this year. Now, in terms of the plane quality, maybe Boeing isn't number one anymore. Maybe we need to start investing in other manufacturers, or come up with a different roadmap for how those planes are being built. But again, out of how many flights does one or two stories come up where something's wrong with the plane? This is the problem when you have a monopolistic control over the industry. And what else is happening is, because they're doing that, they're not lowering prices for customers based on their mistakes. They're not lowering prices. The prices of travel is going up. So they're placing the burden on the consumer, which I think is wrong. So all my short sellers out there, short the airlines and teach them a lesson. You got to treat people right, especially when times are tough. You don't reduce the amount of air travel. Maybe you outsource some regional aircrafts and give them a shot. Do some collaborative partnerships here. Maybe some regional transporters. Get creative. Do some hybrid stuff. But they announced they were going to do this again like 2, 3 years ago, and no explanation at all.
Yeah, see, I think it would be awesome if we did like a GameStop short of the airlines and said, "Look, we're going to continue shorting your stock until you guys lower prices, because I'm not paying for 2 seats." I think I'm a 2-seater. Like, I think I'm on the borderline between having to get a second seat, only because I get anxiety if I have to sit in the middle, and then I got broad shoulders, so my elbows
Yeah.
are touching people. So
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? You get sweaty. It's like I got to
I
take off
know.
my sweater to feel comfortable. I'm taking off my flip-flops. I'm going barefoot on the plane. And that makes people, cringe a little bit if they see the big guy taking off his sandals and he's wearing shorts. He's exposed. The deodorant is kind of coming off because it mostly got on the t-shirt. Who wants to sit next to the big guy sitting in the middle, right? And that's me. So I'm like, do I need to get a second ticket? And then you go buy the second ticket, it's like you're paying like $500 just for yourself. Like, the prices need to come down.
And you know what? That brings up a good point too. Like, if I can take a more comfortable train, even if it's an hour or two slower, and I have space, don't tell me that the rail industry lacks demand. because I'd be on a train in no time. I don't want to fly out of the air and fall to a tumultuous calamity. I'd rather just defer the risk and get on a nice train. Like,
That's going to happen.
The airports are a public service. We, the taxpayers, paid for those airports. Why is the price going up so much? There's no taxes on those bad boys. And we can invest in rail in this country, and it needs to happen. You want to stop the cars from just destroying the atmosphere or destroying the roads year after year after year? We got to do what the UK does, man. We have to invest in rail transportation somehow. We've got to build the infrastructure.
Well, the smartest people aren't really working on this, maybe besides Elon Musk, but his Hyperloop keeps getting blocked. But here's what's going to happen. There's going to be some money hungry, like borderline bums in Vegas that come up with a way to like build some large drones that'll take them to and from. Here's the thing. When you're living in Vegas and you're kind of on the fringe of being broke, you really come up with some creative strategies to hijack the system. Like when I was in Vegas, I was in that exact same position where I would go to the casino just to like sit down and like write and people watch and watch people lose all their money while I was working my, very lowly job as a cleanup person at the Las Vegas Athletic Club. And so after my long shift, I'm like, man, I'm broke. I got no money. I got to find a way to take care of myself. So I went to the Bank of America. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm just playing the slots. I see people playing slots all the time. I'm just going to do it. Go to the account. There's no freaking money in there. Nothing. And this is back when the ATMs had envelopes, right? So I go, there's no way for this machine to know that there's money in the envelope. See, if you're OG, you remember that the ATMs used to have envelopes. So I go to the ATM, I go ahead and just grab an envelope and I deposit that into the ATM machine. It's like $200. And Lord and behold, $200 is available in my account. So I'm like, oh, I just hijacked the system. I just figured it out. Loophole discovered. So I go back to the casino, right? This is Red Rock Casino out in Summerlin. So I'm at the Red Rock Casino and I'm playing and I'm like, all right, $20 is my limit. If I lose 20, I'm just going to go back to the ATM and put the rest back. So of course I don't listen to myself. I play more than 20. I mean, I am down to my last $20, man. And then all of a sudden, I never forget it. I'll never forget it. I'm playing Wheel of Fortune, which is a very exposed game. So everyone can hear if you win Wheel of Fortune. I played $1. I select $1, hit the button, gamble $1. I'm like, I got $3 left. And boom, that sucker hit. It was like ding, 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 ding. I'm like, oh my God. And I think it was like won over $300. I played one more time. I was like, all right, I'm going to sacrifice $20 more to see if I can double down, put it back in. Put it back in. I put it back in.
Oh my God.
I put it back in. I won a couple more times. I won like $70 and then that was it. I cashed out. So then I had to walk like 2 miles because I didn't have a car and it was the desert. It's hot. I'm walking 2 miles back to the ATM because I'm so broke. Back to the ATM, put the actual money back into the account, and boom, I was good. See, it's that type of Las Vegas last dollar creativity that needs to happen in the marketplace with the airlines?
Uh, I'll tell you this. Don't ever attribute that to creativity. God gave you a pass on some very stupid stuff. Pure point, because I'm pretty sure that was a federal crime right there. That you just
It might have
it
been a
got wiped
federal
under the
crime.
radar because God gave you a pass. Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of smart people that said, what happens if there's no money in the
Right.
envelope?
Exactly. You put
Oh
$1,000
man,
in there. But yeah, I totally found a loophole with those ATM machines.
that's
And
that's that's a great story.
well,
I like
speaking
it.
of millionaires and money, this next story here is from CoinDesk, which is a pretty reputable news place for crypto. As you know, I believe Bitcoin hit over 70,000 this week. But here's something interesting, which coincides to my belief. They said that the current Bitcoin bull run is breeding millionaire whales at a slower pace. So currently, less than 2,000 millionaires or wallets with $1 million worth of Bitcoin are created daily. That's significantly lower than the 2020 and then 2021 bull run. Okay. Is this shocking to you, or is
No.
this okay?
I told you my advice. As soon as it hits 75, you take your profits and watch, because you can't manage the risk. There's no risk management strategy for this stuff. You can't borrow against it. There's slower millionaires, meaning that it's not turning over as much, right? So it's it's a gamble right now. It really is. It's very speculative.
Yeah, they're saying that it could be due to a few things. New capital has yet to arrive in full force. 100% agree with that. Large whales are taking profit as BTC hits new highs. Completely agree with that. Whales are storing their holdings with custodians rather than personal wallets. So yeah, people are going to companies to do this for them. They're not retailers putting them in personal wallets because personal wallets have various security risks. So this makes a lot of sense to me too, Mont. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we have a bull run going on right now that's bigger than the last one. And that's why I'm kind of cautious about entering the market right now.
Let me tell you what happened. Another thing that most people don't know. Okay. Regular retail investors who are not high net worth individuals, we we could get our hands on crypto without any legal issues, right? We can go on Coinbase or Webull or whatever, and we can get a piece of the action as retail consumers who are just buying the coins, right? But in 2019, 2020, you had the big brokerage firms who are attached to those ETFs, like the Galaxy, whatever it was, and there's another big one that offered high net worth individuals access to the crypto markets. Now, in order to make a purchase at that point in time, you needed to be an accredited investor. So imagine if you have a substantial stake in that stuff and you attach fees to that purchase versus just doing it yourself. So over time, what happened was when that product was developed, right, it was a private placement, which means it was illiquid. Now, all of a sudden, it's swinging back up. Some people may be upset. It's swinging back up. So what you're seeing is there could be a lot of institutional / high net worth holders who are just refusing to take the loss. It's just a psychological thing where
Right.
they're refusing to sell it. And that's why you have fewer fewer opportunities for people to come in and become millionaires with this stuff.
Yeah, I think that
Because if I bought it at 40, I'm unloading. I'm sorry. I got to get out.
yeah, most of these people bought in. These big institutions bought in at 40. They bought in at 50. So they're not just going to wait till it hits 70 to take profits. They want to make sure that they can report a substantial return. So they're going to pump this, they're going to spread it out among other,
Right.
whatever institutions. Absolutely.
And the fund managers, they don't want the value to go down because it's a part of their net worth. A lot of them have their own personal wealth tied into the fund. So if they take 20% of the returns, they're doing that by taking 20% of the growth in the coins. So they don't want it to go down because it's tied to their wealth too. But again, the problem is it's not creating money. Can't borrow against it.
So you still advise people hold out and sell at 75?
If you're in today, okay, I'm a trader. I'm in today, I'm out at 75.
Sounds good.
That's what I recommend.
I recommend that too.
If you're a long-term investor, what you're waiting for is the opportunity for the laws to change. I might even lobby your congressman, your senator, call into the SEC and say, look, we got to be able to borrow against this. It's not right. We can't manage the risk unless we have that option to do so. So we need to address this. This has to be on the table when the next president gets elected. It's a very serious issue. I mean, $3 trillion, that's a lot of money. It's a big financial debacle there.
Yeah, the total industry market cap for crypto is very close to 3 trillion. Let's see where it's at currently. Yeah, it's at 2.8. So we're very close to 3 trillion. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a little bit bigger than Apple. So
yeah, that's just insane.
At this point, it's too big to fail. You got to do something.
Well, on the Personal Finance Corner, it was brought to my attention that you often help a lot of either high net worth individuals or friends of yours car shop. Like you know the ins and outs of how to navigate car shopping, and maybe that can be a benefit to our listeners and viewers right now. So some advice on car shopping, sir.
Well, if the first thing before you even start looking for a car is can you afford it? What activity is the car going to help you perform to bring in more revenue, to make your financial plans better?
I mean, nobody can afford a car. I'm just let's just be honest. Nobody can afford it, or else everybody be walking into the dealership with cash. But what I didn't know was how they play games with the loan structures and the different kind of loans that they offer you, which you seem to know about, which is crazy that you even know this information.
Yeah, you got to be careful. So when it comes to loans, it's always best to get the loan first before you even walk in. Because if you wait to walk into the dealership, you see a car, they say, "Oh, great, go back there, talk to our finance manager, see what we can do. We're going to agree on a price, and then you're going to go talk to him." Well, what that really means is you're giving the dealer the opportunity to make a 1% to 3% commission on the loan that they get for you from the bank. That's called that's an indirect loan. So the finance manager will get on the phone, or they'll get on the computer, they'll source a deal, and then they legally can say, okay, it came back at 7% interest rate. Well, let's go for today's rates, right? It came back at 15%. But since we're the one who put it through the computer, we can charge 17% and silently take 2% of all the money for the rest of the for the entirety of the loan.
That's crazy.
So that's that's on the finance side. But again, affordability really is what is your budget, basically. And that's very hard to do because they're going to allure you to a more expensive car every time. And honestly, you don't want the car to break down, so you're just like, whatever you guys can do, let's just get it done. And it can be overwhelming. So
are you buying all the warranties and special tire
no,
replacement plans and all that?
if the car's over 100,000 miles, then a warranty makes sense. If it's not, if they're just selling you another product, and they're making your loan bigger because they're going to roll it into the loan. Let's say I sell you a $5,000 warranty. You know what my commission is on that? 50%. So it's a good thing for the salesman to sell you a warranty, right? But it's a brand new car. Why would if something happens mechanically, it's already covered under a manufacturer's warranty. And there's just no way there's just no way around it. So if you want to be extra precautious, it's going to cost you more. Now, for every $1,000 you borrow, it's between like an extra $20-$25 on your note.
So absurd.
So if we do 5 times 20, that's $100. 5 times 25, we're at $125 added on to your budget. So you either buy less car or you just bought more, but you didn't get any value out of it. So I would like to see those warranties reimbursed to the consumer if they're not used. I think that's fair.
How do you negotiate with these people, like on price?
Well, again, your salesman will take your offer to the finance guy, but the dealer is the one who ultimately makes the decision. And the dealer usually can only make maybe 3% on what they paid for the car unless they bought it used. Because the manufacturer is not going to sell it at a discount to the dealer, not a huge one. And I know because I tried to buy an entire lot of BMWs, 100 of them, all at once. And the dealer couldn't give me a deal. You know why? Because technically he didn't own the cars.
Wow. So you're getting ready to buy 100 BMWs and you're saying, look, I'm going to buy all these cars, but you got to give me some kind of deal. And he's not able to do it because he doesn't even own them.
Because technically he doesn't own the cars.
He's just a middleman.
He's just a middleman. Unless he bought it used from an auction or from someone else, and he doesn't hold the title to that car. He himself is a salesman for the manufacturer.
That's crazy.
I was going to buy 100 BMWs, 40 Range Rovers, and like 20, 30 Jaguars, all brand new. And they couldn't give me a deal. You know why? Because technically he only had a 3% spread. They only gave him a 3% discount on all of those cars.
Yeah, if I'm buying all your cars off your lot, I'm not accepting anything less than like at least 10-15%. I mean,
well, what I offered him was I'll take 50% up front. I'll buy all of them 50% cash up front, and then I want you to finance me the other 50%.
Damn, that's a good deal.
But he couldn't do it because they weren't financially sound enough to pull it off. That would have been a good deal for him. But he didn't have all his ducks in a row.
Wow.
So he lost.
Okay. Well, sir, I thank you tremendously. Again, appreciate you coming on the show, the Miles Podmorning Money Show, again with Monty Shockley, the president and founder of SIC Omaha, Shockley Intellectual Capital. Thank you so much for being on the show again today. Yes, love you too, buddy. And my apologies to Matt Damon. We ran out of time. Have a
Sorry,
wonderful
Matt.
rest of your day, people. Sorry, Matt.
Sorry, bud. I'll see you in Boston.